Hi, guys. Welcome to Pink Pill, where it's not all about facts and stats. I am your host, Jamie Lynn. And I have a very special guest with me today. This is my trainer and my friend. His name is Seth. And I don't want to butcher your last name. I feel like I get it wrong like every time. How do I say it?
It's lasagna. No, it's Lagana.
I was like, if it's lasagna, that's going to be really easy for me to remember.
Everybody called me lasagna growing up. So I think my family, they're Sicilian, and I think they like
your family is Sicilian.
Yeah.
My family is Sicilian.
Really?
I'm Sicilian. How do we not know this about each other?
I don't know. Because I have a part of my family that's from Texas, so I think they bastardized the last name and just made it American. And they say Lagana. They say Lagana, but I think it's Lagana.
So that's so funny because my family, when they immigrated here too, changed our last name.
Yeah, I think
that
that's
you
what they did.
it's like a rite of passage. You kind of have to.
Yeah, and also in Spanish, like Lagana means eye booger. So.
Oh well, that's good to know. Well, now
I think that's maybe why they changed it. But I think it's Lagana, and they say my family says
Seth
Lagana. Lagana. That my family says Lagana.
Should we say Lagana or Lagana?
I don't care. I don't really care.
I'm going with Lagana.
Let's go Lagana. That's what my grandma says.
Okay.
So, I'm looking at these quotes that Andrew Tate have said, and they just blow my mind.
So we're gonna get into that. So let's introduce the topic, and then I want you to just to go ham where you want to.
Yeah, let's do it.
So look, I had a couple reasons why I wanted to bring Seth on, because Seth is what I would consider and what I feel like many red pillars would consider to be like a high value man, but I think a lot of the red pillars and people in the manosphere really miss the mark when they describe masculinity, when they describe men, especially men in relationships, and they leave a lot of elements out. So I wanted to bring Seth in because he meets a lot of their markers for being a high value man. I'd say that you're a guy with a lot of options. You're a guy that's very financially sound, and you're good looking, like those are kind of physically fit is one of their criteria for being like, he's a personal trainer. I mean, you can't get more physically fit than that. And so I wanted to have you on because I was like, well, let's kind of get a high values man's like opinion on dating, love, and relationships. And I don't want you to sugarcoat it.
No.
I want you to keep it real. I know I'm here and I know that we're friends, but I really want to give the viewers a peek inside the mind of men, because there's a lot of stuff out there that some I can understand, but some I think is just absolute hype, absolute bullshit. It's things that they're doing to sell a program. And I think that we were kind of talking before about how you kind of might even feel the same way. So maybe we could just start with let's see. I had some questions for you.
Yeah.
But what would you say, do you think it's hard to date in Vegas? Because you're single. Or are you single? Are you dating? Or what's your relationship status?
I'm talking to some people right now, and you gotta understand, when I was younger, my ambitions for love, they were different, and I think it's because I had an ego, and my interests in life, they changed over time, And as you get older, you kind of strip your ego, and you lose a lot of insecurities, and you become more confident in yourself. And especially when you attain some form of success, you just change. You change. So I'm not saying I've always been the ideal man. I've had moments in my life that I'm not proud of, where I did chase the wrong type of person, and I kind of just learned from my mistakes as I got older. Did I have, these crazy ambitions to find women who weren't valuable, who just meet certain markers, like they were maybe physically fit, they were beautiful, but they didn't, challenge me intellectually. They didn't add any value to my life other than just a physical form, passion and whatnot. And there were moments where I even had these really good relationships, and I got out of them because I was just searching for passion, and it didn't go far. It just didn't go far. So, I've found love in Las Vegas. Go back to your question. I've found love in Las Vegas. I have. I don't think it's impossible, but I think I've changed so much over the years that, finding love here, it hasn't been an issue. But as I've gotten older and more mature, I think it's more complicated. I don't think it's impossible.
Do you think Vegas is it's harder to find romance here, real connection and love?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. No. I think there are shitty people all over.
That's true.
There are, man. There are a lot of shitty people.
That's very true.
No, not necessarily. I don't think so. I think it's easy to find the wrong person here.
Absolutely. Well, it's a lot of people always say, like, when I have clients, I always hear this. They're usually people that are having trouble in relationships, and they're like, "Oh, I always feel like I picked the wrong person, right? I always feel like there's a red flag hanging over my head." And I'm like, "No, it's not that you're picking the wrong. It's not that you're like that. This person is picking you, and you have a red flag over your head. It's just you're entertaining somebody
Right.
that you shouldn't. And see
That's
that person.
perfect. Performance. I think that's a big
Yeah.
problem in this town is people tend to put on a performance. So you don't even know who this person is until like a year or two after being with them substantially. You find out who they really are. And I've had moments where I've dated someone for a couple years and then I lived with them and then I found out that they're like, holy shit, this person sucks. Like this person's nothing like they were when I first started dating.
How is it like a year? Like, so you feel like it's kind of, because I agree with you. I think a lot of people, you meet the representative, at least initially, and then
Yeah, it's a performance.
what you want to pay attention to, I think, is like patterns of behavior. And you're only going to be able to see that like across time and in different situations.
Yeah, a lot of times, especially with social media, get these people who are like, oh, he loves to lift. And so they'll pretend like they love to go to the gym and they'll be like, oh, I go to the gym a lot, even though they don't. And then you get a relationship with them and you go to the gym every day and they're like, why do you have to go to the gym so much? I'm like, we established this when we first got together. This is my love. This is my passion. Or like when a girl tells me, oh, I love it when you play rugby. Like, it's awesome. And then you're in a relationship with her. And then over time, she's like, I hate that you play rugby. Like, it takes so much time away from our relationship. And I was like, this is not what we talked about at the beginning of the relationship. You know, you understood that this is a massive passion of mine. And that, you know, over time, they just become a little selfish or their real personality reveals itself, you know? I think that happens a lot in Vegas. A lot.
I think a lot of times what happens is that people will start compromising what they really want for like short-term gain.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and they're like, well, you know, like let's just say like you're a really healthy eater, right? But your partner isn't. Like long term, that's going to hurt you because your
Big
life,
time.
right?
I talk about this with my clients all the time.
Yeah, because your lifestyles are different, right? But let's say, and you can probably like fake the funk for a little bit, but if you really don't adopt that kind of mindset, if it's not really that important to you, that's going to cause disruption. So you can only like fake the funk for so long before it kind of like
that. Fake the funk.
Fake the funk.
That's really fake the funk is essentially just tolerating a person, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
like, and I feel like people do it because it's like, you know, they pick from, a lot of people just pick wrong from a place of like scarcity or fear or like I'm running out of time is a big one for women.
Yeah, like loneliness, or they think that they're not going to be able to have kids.
Exactly.
At a certain time.
Or I see people do this. They'll find, women do this a lot. They'll be like, well, he's a good guy. But I tell the people all the time, well, good guy doesn't mean right guy.
They're compromising because the guy is good.
Well, because
like,
they
that's
dated
pretty
like
low standards.
Well, I agree. Like I agree, but they've dated like they have such a shit dating history that they're like, well, you know, I'm not super sexually attracted to him, but you know, he doesn't do A, B, C, D, and I know he'll be faithful, so I'm just gonna like link up with him.
So they're complacent, essentially.
I think they're just doing. I think people don't know how to date smart. And I don't think that people really understand, like, there's a bit of a strategy involved, but you really got to know thyself.
You have to
if you want to find your partner.
You have to reveal who you really are. Like,
I agree.
Pull out all the fucking demons. Like, I can curse, right? Is that right?
Absolutely.
So you pull out all the demons and get them on the table, and you set your boundaries immediately in a relationship. Immediately. And then you don't have to worry about shit. Like,
see, some people say, like, I agree with you, but some people say that you shouldn't, because like you shouldn't talk about religion, you shouldn't talk about politics, and you shouldn't talk about like one other thing. And I'm like, you should 100. I would do that.
You don't think that shit's gonna come up eventually?
I was like, I would do that shit right away, because then you can find out if you're aligned with somebody or not.
Just imagine you're in a relationship.
Time.
You're in a relationship for 2 years, and she's like, I'm like out of nowhere. She's like, I'm gonna go to church, and then you're like, I believe in Satan. Like, what do you mean? I thought we both believed in Satan. We're like, no, actually, we never talked about it.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
Dude, you have to have these conversations.
Yes. See, I tell people this. I'm like, I feel like those conversations, they don't scare off the right person. They will scare out. Look, those kinds of conversations are very intimidating to have. But if somebody's really for you, there's going to be an alignment there where there might be a little bit of tension, but there's the ability to withstand the tension.
Yeah.
You know, and so you might as well get it all out on the table. So I like what you're saying. I don't think a lot of people think like that though.
Yeah, I don't mean to bring up his name. Should I
Oh
bring up
God.
his name?
What?
I love him to death, and I'm not talking
Who?
poorly of him, and you know who I'm talking about.
Oh my God, say it.
Okay, so let's talk about Dan, and I'm not talking poorly of Dan. I love Dan to death.
Dan
Thunder Dan.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he recently got out of a relationship, and then he started dating one of my clients. Like, just not really, just like I think they went on a couple dates or something. And I think Dan did something great. He literally expressed to her who he has been in the past, and he's been a fucking wild man. And I was just amazed at what Dan told my client. Like he really exposed himself. Like
I love Dan.
I love Dan too. I think Dan is amazing.
You know what?
And he did the smart thing.
You know what's so surprising that a lot of people don't recognize how vulnerable those boys are and how open emotionally they are.
It's got to be hard for them to date. It's got to be impossible for them to date.
It's not, well. Maybe to find a relationship, yeah, but it's not hard for them. But I want to get into that though.
Like finding a fruitful and rewarding relationship like you and Liam have, it's got to be tough for those guys. It really does, because a lot of women would probably feel a little insecure, a little jealous, you know. So that's the best thing he did. I think, the most responsible thing that he did was he brought up his past and he said, this is who I used to be.
Yeah.
And I've changed a lot, you know, and I'm not this person anymore. And I just hope that you can accept me for who I am, you know? And I was amazed. I was like, that's really like.
I love that he did that. You know, I think so many people would be surprised that there's so much depth to, look, a lot of women think guys are just not very dimensional, honestly. I know that they are, but I have a unique window into the vulnerability and the emotional side of men doing what I do, right?
Well, so you see like a complex part of all people, really.
Guys know how to read women a lot better than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
Like they're a lot smarter than women give them credit for, and they're a lot more intuitive than women give them credit for. Usually women get all the credit for being intuitive, but I'm gonna tell you, and I do think that women might be slightly higher on that scale than men, but men pick up on shit. A man will meet you. Will you tell me this? Like, because I feel like a guy will get a good sense about a girl very quickly. And I think there was like a study done that was like a guy knows within like 30 seconds if he wants to like sleep with you or not, or like if that might have been a girl stat, but like if you're going to be in like the HO3 category or if you're going to be in like the wifey category, they'll like separate you right away. And I don't know if that's necessarily intuition, but like you get where I'm going with it. It's like a sense.
I don't know. I'm so stuck on this, like really trying to figure a person out, and like kind of unraveling the layers of a person has become more difficult, like I said, in Vegas. So I don't know. I'm so hesitant now because of my past.
Well, that's okay. So that's you personally though, but do you feel like most guys when they're interacting with girls, they'll tend to kind of categorize them as is somebody that I would only sleep with, and this is somebody that's potential dating material.
Of course.
How do they go through that process in their head? Like, what makes somebody like dating wifey material versus somebody that, hey, I only want to sleep with you? Because a lot of girls too, and you know, I think it might be good for them to hear it from you. Like a lot of women feel like if they sleep with men, it means that there's a level of seriousness or even commitment.
For sure. They really want monogamy at that point, right?
But like guys don't really see it that way. Like
I think most men don't. You'd be surprised. Some men don't feel that way, but a lot of them do, yeah.
Some men are really relationship minded, which is great. But like sleeping with somebody, like women view that very differently than men do, and sleeping with somebody doesn't necessarily mean they're serious about you or that they even like you. It's just unfortunately, like I think a guy really can just sleep with you and have no connection, no nothing.
And do you think being a therapist, like what are your thoughts on that? Why do you think that is? Why do you think women crave monogamy more than men, and why do you think men are really just chasing the physical form, like passion and whatnot, and not, you know, looking into, monogamy or like trying to find somebody,
Well,
to be with?
I think it's a good question. It's one that it's a topic that kind of hits around here a lot. Something that I know Michael Sartain, who has a podcast here, talks
Okay.
about, and he would back that up, saying it's evolutionary and biologically yada yada yada. That's why we're wired to do that. I disagree.
What do you think maybe it's because women are just trying to protect themselves?
I think
Like
that's a
physiologically, it is not healthy for a woman to have multiple partners. Whereas it, for a man, he can kind of get away with having more partners because there's not as much going on
so
physiologically.
that's the take that evolutionary psychologists present,
So that's
and
what he's saying.
yes,
Oh,
to some degree, he expands on it a little bit. But yes, that is what he's saying. And look, from an evolutionary standpoint, it does make sense. However, we are much more than that. We're very
now,
complex
yeah,
creatures,
yeah, of
right? So
course,
we've evolved beyond just that need and desire. So
for sure.
is that an explanation as to why that happens? Yes, but it's a partial explanation as to
Oh,
why
it's
that
not the
happens.
complete reason. No, you're right.
You
You're right.
know, and like I will tell you this, like I think men when they're younger do a little bit more fucking around, but
Fuck yeah.
I think that there's a
I
part.
did. I did a lot. And dude, it sets you up for either failure or success, right? You either learn from it, and as you age, you realize it's not the most important thing. It's not. I've had relationships where passion was the main objective. And then afterwards, like, what the hell do you fucking do? Like,
That's
you
what I
have sex all
mean.
day, and then you're laying in bed, and you're like, do you want to watch Seinfeld? Like, what do you want to do? What sort of substance is there after the physical form?
So
Like,
what you're saying though, so what I think I'm hearing you say is that like you are looking like would you say that most men, okay, are looking for more than just sex?
I think as I get older, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and really, let's be honest. Love is trial and error this day and age. It's trial and error. Like you thought you found somebody, you invested all you could into it, and it failed, and you learn from it, and you move on, and you find someone, and you try not to make the same mistakes you did, in the previous relationship. Love is all trial and error. Like I don't necessarily think. I mean, there are some exceptions of people like finding each other when they're like teenagers and then growing up and falling in love and staying together forever. My grandparents did that. When
Yeah?
they're 18, I think they're 18, they've been married for over 60 something years.
God, that's so
And they're still
beautiful.
together. And a part of me when I was a kid, I wanted that. And then as I got older, I was like, Jesus, they must be fucking miserable. Like, I don't know.
You know what? Like
because they argue a lot. They're very petty. They like, she'll talk to him, and he'll get mad that he can't hear her, so he'll yell, like, what do you want? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. They love each other. I understand that. But it just seems like they're just tolerating each other. You know what I mean? And I know I'm completely wrong here. I know they love each other. But at times when I was a kid, I saw my grandpa just get really angry that she was like even in the same room as him. And when I got older, they kind of like adjusted my scope on love a lot,
Well,
really.
there's like, there's the initial like chemistry, I think, when you fall in love, that kind of spark, but chemistry is different than falling in love and sustaining love.
Sustaining love is something I wanted to talk to you about.
Yes.
Because love has to be endurable,
Yes.
right? It
Yeah.
has to be endurable. It
Yeah.
has to stand the test of time.
It does. It's more than like I kind of say it like this. Like real love is beyond physical. I am the first person to say you need to be attracted to your partner. That looks do play a part, okay? But I tend to go more attraction than physical character traits, like
Right.
because and I can do a whole fucking show just on that one, just right there.
Right.
But like you do need to be attracted to the person that you're with, and a lot of people will overlook that quality. But that is what kind of gets your foot in the door, okay? And I see a lot of women spend time, okay, on that trait, and they put all their focus on that trait to be physically attractive. And then you get that person, you've secured him, you've attracted him, but they can't maintain it, they can't sustain it. And I have seen that happen over and over and over again, where they don't have trouble attracting men, but they have trouble sustaining the relationship.
So where do your expectations go after you realize, okay, he's attractive and I have passion for this person and we've completed the passion, right? So you've had sex for fucking a whole year every day, right? After that, what are your expectations of your partner? Like, to be hotter, or I mean, you're just assuming that they're going to stay hot.
Guy? Like,
yeah, you're just going to assume that they're staying hot
like,
forever,
can you
which
imagine
doesn't happen.
Can you like? I think women feel a lot of pressure to stay beautiful because it's like, oh well, like look, if that's what you've got, like if that's what you're leading with, right? And I'm not knocking it, but like if there isn't something else there besides that. Well, there are a million other people that can just snatch that right out of your hand if there's not more to offer than that.
I think the variable of having an insane amount of options these days is different than when my grandparents were growing up. They're from a small towns, you know. I think they met in Big Spring, Texas, when there was like maybe a couple thousand people there on an Air Force base. I'm pretty sure that's where they met. And back then, it's like, dude, there's nobody around. This is all you had. You had maybe 100 men to choose from, you know? And it's completely different now. I think the variable of having options makes love difficult because a lot of my friends always said this when I got out of relationships. They're always like, dude, don't worry. There's plenty of fish in the sea. And it's like, is that fucking us up? Right? Is that making sustaining romance like more impossible now than it was back then? Because back then it's all you fucking had.
I think it makes it harder. I think with all the options, it makes it harder to actually find a connection because most people, well, I think most people aren't. It kind of depends on what the intent is and where you are in the love and the dating game, right? But let's just say we're assuming that both people are relationship minded.
Right.
It's really easy to kind of have, I think when there's a genuine connection, you're not going to have that as much. Like, in fact, it's kind of the reverse, actually. When there's real connection and real love, it's like you don't see anybody else. It's the complete opposite of that. When you start kind of looking for the grass is greener on the other side, that suggests to me that there's something, not that the relationship needs to be perfect, but perhaps there's something that isn't there that should be.
Missing. Something's missing. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've had relationships in the past where my mind was wandering, and I thought I was happy. You know, I thought I was happy. I thought I was fulfilled. You know, sexually, intellectually. I thought there was a future. I was confident, but for some reason, my mind was still wandering. And a lot of it has to do with social media. A lot of it has to do with having access to other women, especially in the U.S. Like. It's really easy to find somebody, but it's not easy to find something sustainable. Yeah. And that's kind of been my issue in my life is I tend to find somebody and then my mind will wander. And I'm just like, why is my mind wandering? Like, I thought I was completely happy with this person. Like, I thought I was fulfilled. I thought every day has been super rewarding. I thought she's adding value to my life. But what is going on in my head? It's almost like subconscious. Like, why am I not putting all of my eggs in this basket and why am I not just really focusing on her? Why are my eyes wandering?
Well, look, there's so much that could be, to that, but part of it could be this idea of good woman, not right woman for you. Where it's just like, well, it makes sense. Because what you just did is you're like, well, I thought I was sexually fulfilled, intellectually fulfilled, all this. But like when I describe connection, I don't talk about any of that shit.
Really?
No.
So what's the most important thing for you?
Like in a relationship, romantically, I think you need three things. I think you need to be sexually attracted to your partner. I think you need alignment, which is what we were talking about earlier. So like
alignment as in your paths align.
Yeah. Like I had, like let's look at Liam and I, right? Very aligned on a lot of levels. We have the same lifestyle. We eat the same way. We have the same routine. It makes it effortless when you have that, right? Whereas, my former relationship didn't have any of those qualities, and it caused a lot of distress. We were living two separate lives under the same roof, cooking two separate dinners, doing two separate things.
Do you think you found yourself compromising a lot in that relationship?
Oh, absolutely. That relationship. I didn't really know who I was yet, though. I didn't.
Well, there we go. That brings up my point. It's like you find out when you kind of have a better understanding who you are, you know where your path is going, and you know who can align with it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like you
Yeah.
have to, look, if you're going to set boundaries with people and you're going to say, I like this, I like, this is okay with me, this isn't, you have to know who you are first, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
And you
exactly.
have to radically accept who you are. Now, that doesn't mean that you should be rigid and not flexible, but you don't compromise like your core integrity and your core character traits and things like that. Like, unless they're like toxic and problematic, but
I think people do that a
I
lot
do
in this
too.
town. They do.
I do too.
They'll literally put on this performance. Like we've been talking about this a lot already, but they will become someone they're not, just to fulfill a passionate relationship with somebody, just because they're attractive. They'll become someone that they're not, to obtain that person, and then their true colors will start
See,
becoming
and this is
exposed.
part of the red pill problem though, like is what you're saying, because that's the kind of advice they'll give guys. They'll be like, well, like they're telling guys to get physically fit, but what if he's not a gym guy? Well,
Right.
you're not going to be aligned. Like, let's say you attract a fit girl, like, and now you're physically fit, but you fucking hate the gym. You're gonna crash and burn. Eventually, that's not going to be able to sustain you, right? And that's a really small example, but the advice that these guys, like Fresh and Fit, and the red pill manosphere community, is they're like put on an image, fake it till you make it kind of thing, and they talk about manipulative tactics too.
So they preach that.
Yes, they do. In fact, one of the guys was saying, this was Myron, and he's like one of the hosts of Fresh and Fit. I mentioned this on another show, but he gave an example. He was coaching men, and their whole thing is they're selling like a men's coaching fucking program or whatever. And he's talking to his guys, and he's giving them advice. And he's like, well, if she won't fuck you, call another girl right in front of her.
Yeah.
And when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, okay, let's say that works and that girl that you're with stays. Well, you're not with a woman that really values herself, and there's going to be a whole load of problems that come with that. Okay, so you're already setting the relationship off on not a good note. Also, you're using really manipulative and nasty strategies to attract somebody. And in my opinion, I think that can be really dangerous, and if you continue down that path, can actually become abusive.
Well, what is the end goal here? Just to have
I
sex?
kind of well, so
Is it
I
just
kind of
sex?
so I have the same question. I have the same question for them: is what is the fucking end goal? Because the
Okay,
point.
let's just assume that hypothetically you
Yeah.
get this girl, you put on a performance, you get her in bed, and you guys fuck for like 2 weeks straight, like 5 times a day. And then when you're sitting there and you're fucking exhausted, what the fuck do you say to her? What do you do? Do you watch TV? Like, what are your expectations of her after that? After you've already accomplished
I think
the physical side?
So one of
If I
the.
remember correctly, it was make a sandwich and leave them alone.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yikes.
Yes,
I love
think,
sandwiches.
So I think that is what they said, right? Where they like make me a sandwich and just sleep with me, and that was the. So
It's not sustainable, man.
well, here's how they're looking at relationships, and this is one of their biggest faults in what they're doing. Okay, they look at relationships like they're transactions. Okay,
Yeah,
so they're
I see that.
they're like woman, sex, sandwich, exchange. Okay. And I'm like, but the guys that the guys that are buying this program, I have a sense that they want more than that. I have a sense that they're looking for love, a relationship, something beyond that, something that they can connect, have a life with, right? Beyond just a transaction.
Yeah, it'd be like if me selling a training program and only giving you the first week, but charging you for like fucking 8-week program. You're like, okay, what's after the first week? And you're like, I don't got anything else.
Oh my
It's
God,
just
I
1
love
week,
that. I
right?
love that analogy.
It's only 1 week. So you get this girl, you have sex with her, and then what do they say after that? What do they
I don't know. I don't think
expect?
that they have great social skills, and I don't actually think that they've given them much information. But again, what they're doing is they're just selling you a transaction. They're not talking about how to build healthy relationships. And here's the other thing. Here's one of the biggest flaws. When there's another thing that they do is that they talk about how, this guy wrote a book saying women deserve less. Like that is literally what the book is called, right? And so it's pretty offensive, and he writes a whole book on why they should deserve less, and I have not read it, but I can only imagine. And
If
I
you're
think
a guy and you're only trying to find a woman, an invaluable woman, you're never going to find a valuable woman. It's just not going to happen because they're not going to be attracted to you.
I will exactly.
It's just not going to happen.
Any woman that is of high value, any woman that values herself, okay, or has healthy self-esteem, would see that kind of behavior and run, and they would never tolerate it. They would never tolerate it because look, relationships are not transactional. Relationships are conditional, meaning that the conditions need to be maintained in order to maintain the love, the support.
Let's break down the psyche of a guy who is buying these programs.
Okay.
Right.
So the stats say that they're incels.
Insane amounts of insecurity, vulnerabilities.
You think so?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Like, I'm extremely confident, right?
Would you buy their program, Seth?
No, it has no value to me. It has no value to me. But I think the men who are buying these programs they're super insecure. They have to be.
I think, look, in order
they
for
lack an ego, but they lack the right type of ego, you know?
Like to me, I'm like, okay, these men are hurting. That's kind of how I see it.
That's a good way of looking at it. Let's not attack these men.
Look, they're like what I want to do is actually speak to them and give them a healthier resource than them. Because look, like dating is very difficult for guys, and some of the points they bring up are actually true. Okay, they're just going about it in an unhealthy way. Like,
okay, what? Give me an example.
So one of the points that they say is that most men aren't actually having sex. They're saying that only like the top 1% actually are sleeping with the majority of the women.
I have a crazy story about that.
Okay, tell me.
There's a guy. He's a podcaster. I don't want to tell his name. He dated one of my clients, right? And
now I want to know.
I'll tell you after.
Okay.
I'll tell you. I don't want to put her name out there.
Okay.
Now you know it's a she. But anyways, she'll probably listen to this anyways. So she went on a date with this guy, and they went on multiple dates, and then he started talking about sex, right? And he's a very large man.
Okay.
He's like almost obese.
Okay.
To the point where he's like diabetic, and that he can't get it up. He can't get a hard on. So he basically pushed her away when she became very, what's the word, like physical. Like they went home together.
Like she was receptive to him.
She just didn't care. She's like, I don't care. And she would always tell me she's lowering her standards. But she kind of likes him. I'm lowering my standards, but I kind of like him. I don't know. And then they got drunk together, and they go back to his house, and then she becomes aggressive. She's like, let's fucking do it. Like, I don't care. I don't care that I'm not attracted to you. Like, I connect with you, and let's just do it. And she goes to have sex with him, and then he completely changes. Like, he pushes her away, and then the next day he's like, I don't think it's going to work out. And I think it was because he was just so ashamed of himself that he couldn't get it up, that he literally destroyed something that was like good for him. Because this girl is amazing. I love her to death. She's become one of my best friends that I've ever trained. She's like one of those people like you that I've trained, and we're friends. And she deserves better than this, obviously. And it just, dude, it was like so shitty. She's like, I didn't even want to fuck this guy. Like, it was a pity fuck. And he pushed me away because he was so insecure. He was so ashamed of himself.
I feel for guys like that.
There are guys like that, dude. They exist. They do exist.
So, they're like, and I'm glad that you shared that, because that is a good example. But what they're saying is that, you know, there's only like the top 1% that actually have access or actually have a lot of sexual partners, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think,
get this. He goes on the podcast, right, and he completely lies. He lies about everything. He said he tells everybody on air, like, oh, I didn't have anything for her. Like, she liked me more than I liked her. Like, this was his response.
Ew.
Yes, right? Isn't that insane? I felt so bad. She was so upset. She's like, I was just gonna pity fuck him. Like, I was just being nice because we connected. Like, I wasn't even physically attracted to him. And then he went on air and he told all these people, just blatantly lied, and said that he was gonna pity fuck her, and then he basically spun it around.
That's somebody trying to protect you.
So what is the psyche of this guy? You explain that to me.
So, I mean, I'm not going to diagnose anybody. I have to say that.
Okay.
Okay. Now that that's out of the way. So to me, I would agree. That's probably somebody that's not comfortable in their own skin. They're like, without having been there could have been a lot of different ways that went. But That's somebody probably trying to protect themselves more than anybody, or has a difficult time being vulnerable. And
I think that's a good word, vulnerability.
if he's had a problem with his weight, it's likely that he hasn't had too many sexual partners or felt comfortable to do that. And so you might push away a good thing if that's the case, because you're so uncomfortable with yourself. Like, if you have self-rejection, love can land in your lap and you won't trust it. You'll push it away.
Because you have issues with yourself, essentially.
Yeah, well, like, if it's just, if you don't, like, it sounds corny, but it reigns true through and through. Like, if you really don't love and respect yourself, if somebody comes along and loves and respects you, you don't trust it. You
Right.
don't believe it. Like,
Right.
you have to have that rooted in you first in order to gain that from others.
And this goes along with what you said earlier about finding somebody that aligns with your path. You know, you need to know what your path is first.
Absolutely. Like, you have to have a good sense of self. There's going to be a lot of people, like, I always say this, if you don't set boundaries, other people will set them for you.
For sure.
You know, and so you have to have a really strong sense of self and where you're going in life. And like, you're going to meet people that, and when you do that, and when you start telling people no, you're going to lose a lot of people.
Right.
But you're not going to lose people that were ever for you, because real love and real relationships, they can withstand that.
Yeah, they're endurable.
They
They're
can,
endurable.
Exactly.
So now we broke down the psyche of this
Okay.
type of person.
Yes.
Right? And this is the type of person that's buying that program. It's the guy that went on a date with, I can't say her name. But this is the type of guy. I swear to God, that's the type of guy. He's got an ego, but he has no justification for having it. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I wouldn't even say that that's like, I wouldn't say he has an ego. I would say that that's all a front, right?
yes, it's a he's
That's
vulnerable.
a front. He's just
vulnerable.
he's like, I have to show the world this because, like, I can't be that open with people. Like.
So this is why I wanted to bring this up, because I don't want to attack these men for buying these programs, because they're just vulnerable men, and then they probably have a history of just either getting let down or letting down themselves, right? And they don't necessarily know what their path in life is, and they haven't found somebody that aligns with their path. And these vulnerabilities, these insecurities lead them to like buying these programs from these, what would you say, these like fake alpha demagogues.
You know what's so funny is they don't even call themselves alphas. They call it, which is so weird because they talk about being an alpha male so much. Do you remember what they call themselves, Amber?
Most of the people I know who call themselves alphas aren't really alphas.
I've never met an alpha ever call himself an alpha.
No.
I don't even know. Like, I think we have such a warped view of what healthy masculinity is anyway. Like, and what they're showing people is not masculine, not even in the slightest. What it does is it mirrors some masculine traits, like it mirrors some evolutionary traits of what masculinity looks like, but it's all smoke and mirrors.
So what do you think of toxic masculinity? And do you think it's really prevalent?
I think what they're marketing is toxic as fuck.
Yeah, some of the shit that I'm reading that some of these guys say, it's absurd. Like,
and like,
I think one of them that Andrew Tate said is that women deserve to be raped. And
what?
Yes.
Oh my.
Yeah, he did say that on his podcast, because I remember seeing clips about that.
Dude, that's absurd. Look, some of the things, if you're a fucking jackass and you just love to listen to yourself talk, right? And you're well spoken, sometimes you might say some shit that makes sense. And then some of these guys are listening like, oh my God, that fucking makes sense. And then they just blindly follow this motherfucker. And then over time, he starts saying crazier and crazier shit. And they're like, well, that kind of makes sense. I don't necessarily agree with that, but the other thing he said makes sense. And then it's like, they're just following him, you know? And they don't necessarily look at the root of what he's saying to realize it's fucking absurd, dude. It's absurd. And they're suckers because they're just buying into the performance. Like, there's this UFC fighter, his name's Colby Covington. He didn't make a lot of money in the UFC until he started like appealing to this audience that he thought everyone hated. Mm-hmm. And now every time he got on TV, he would just be absurd. And some people loved it and some people hated it. But the attention itself garnered so much more popularity that now he's like a household name, you know? So this is what these guys are doing. They're exactly what you said. They're putting on a fucking performance. They're saying absurd shit to draw attention.
Well, they are doing that. And here's where it gets, this is why I wanted to do this podcast, was because this is where it gets really dangerous. So I work I have a huge background in, obviously I'm a mental health therapist,
Right.
but I specialize in abuse, narcissism, like the really, really dark traits.
You work with women that like sex workers and stuff like that.
I've worked in the jails
Right,
where
right. You
women
told
have
me, yeah.
been sex trafficked, and I did work at a DV shelter out here, and
And I
all
don't mean to
kinds of
interrupt
stuff.
you. But I feel like that's such a selfless job, Jamie. For sure. That's super selfless.
Thank you.
It is.
Yeah. Well,
Like we need more people like that for sure.
I definitely like when I hear comments like that, right? Like that was shocking to hear. Like I honestly can't even believe that
What
he
was?
said the rape comment that he made.
It's not shocking to me because that's his aim.
Well, here's where I wanted to come in with that is when you say something like that, you'll have an audience, like you're saying, that doesn't question it. They've already bought into his.
They've bought into other shit that he said, so
then
it's
there's-
easier for them to accept the really absurd, right?
Exactly. It's a psychological technique. If you guys want to Google it, it's called slowly escalating commitments. You're welcome.
Really?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds
So
of strategies
this is exactly
behind.
what this motherfucker is doing.
Well, that's just a small example of and that's not necessarily he's intentionally doing. That's the side effect of what that creates socially. But
Right.
what's very dangerous about that is now you have guys buying into his ideology that it's okay to rape women. And another huge thing that I've been trying to create a different perspective on, and I did a show on it a couple weeks ago, was how women dress. And they're basically saying that, well, you know what? If you dress a certain way, you better be prepared for the consequences. And it's like, that's a really unhealthy way to look at it, because what we really need to be doing is to create a safe environment for everybody, men and women, that they can dress however they want to and not feel like they could be sexually assaulted or attacked.
Right.
That to me is the bigger point. And we miss these things when we have men like Andrew Tate and the podcast like Fresh and Fit portraying healthy masculinity in this way.
Why is it called
and then,
Fresh and Fit? It sounds like a fucking meal prep company. Retarded. So you're telling me there's all these fucking misogynistic, like fake alphas that have a podcast called Fresh and Fit?
yes, yeah.
They,
I think I don't know
ground
why.
turkey on the side? I don't
I
understand
tried to
it.
look up what they call themselves, but the reason why they call themselves Fresh and Fit is the main reason is because it's fresh content and you need to be fit.
Seems like
okay,
fucking
so-
pretty backwards content.
Amber, do you think I don't even want to go down this rabbit hole? But
No, let's get these motherfuckers.
no, because
Let's do it.
Let's show them who a real alpha is. Let's show them who a
The
real
thing
alpha
is that like, look, I don't want to match their energy. I really don't. I want to shift it completely because, like,
I'm a violent gentleman.
I know.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
I saw you when you almost like fucking remember that one day you got rocked up on and I was
Oh my
there.
God.
Jesus
I don't want to
Christ.
bring that up, but
Yeah.
that was in my I've always wanted to talk to you about this, but in that moment in my head, and I'm not a violent person.
No,
The only
you were
time I'm
you were
ever-
super calm.
The only
You were
time
so calm.
the only time I'm ever violent is when I play rugby, and it's like you have an excuse to, and that's always been my outlet, always. But in these situations, the worst goes through my head, and I'm like, I always have to hold myself back, and I always think of like doing the worst thing in my head first, and then I like calm down, and then I just have more composure, and then I always think of listening more, right? If you're ever in a really bad situation, and you think it's like fight or flight, I think listening will really help. And just not talking and just listening to the person that's upset, I think it goes a long way. And that's my grandma always used to tell me that. So that's just something that I did in that moment, and it ended up working.
I think you handled it very well. Like if you guys don't, well, obviously you guys don't know what we're talking about, but Seth was in a really like some people rocked up on you, and I was there, and
I got surrounded by some people that
Like
were
5
upset about
people.
something I said, and it was misunderstood. It was a misunderstanding, and it was just a joke, and it was because of things just escalated in the wrong way.
No need to explain yourself.
Yeah.
The thing is that
We're over it now, and we're
he handled it
tolerating
really well.
each other in the world.
Yeah, he
So
handled
that's-
it. You handled it well. I felt like you kept really good
But
composure. It was a difficult
in my
situation.
head, I already fought like 100 times in my head, and I knew who I was going to punch first and where this guy was going to fall on the ground, and like it just kind of played in my head, and then I was like, no, this is stupid. You just listen to them.
It de-escalated though.
And yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I did. But back in the day, like when I was this fake fucking alpha, I used to fight. I got in fights. When I was in college, I started a bar fight. I was with a buddy of mine who happened to be black, and we're in this bar, and someone used a racial epithet in front of him, and I was super alpha, and I was like, "What did you say?" And he said, he called my friend the N-word, and I punched him, and I knocked over this big table of drinks, and apparently it belonged to a fraternity. So me and two other people got in this massive bar fight when I was in college, and I had to go to jail. I had to go to jail for it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I learned my lesson that, fighting's not the answer. It really isn't. But it's funny when I saw the judge was black, and I explained to him what it was, and he let me go.
Really?
Yeah, he let me go.
Well, I think when you talk about like
He dropped the charges, which was awesome.
Well, that's good. I think when we talk about masculinity, one of the things that I think a lot of people get wrong is a lot of people misinterpret aggression for masculinity, and it's not.
Exactly.
And so like I think so when they're teaching these traits or whatever, they're teaching men to show up as more aggressive, and it's like that's not very healthy. Yes, I think women want men to be protectors and providers, and women do want to feel safe around men, and that's okay. They talk about those things as being desirable traits, and they are correct.
Right.
In that, but how they go about getting that is where they really kind of miss the mark, in my opinion. And they teach you unhealthy ways to showcase that, or to showcase masculinity, and to present yourself in a way that's not real or authentic.
Do you think most of these men are young that are buying this? Which is also kind of scary if that's true. Like the Seth that got in a fight for someone saying the N-word in college. Do you think this is the type of person that's buying these programs?
I think the viralness of it is in the middle school area. Yeah, like
holy shit, that's terrifying.
It's super young. Yeah, I think a lot of like middle school boys are hearing Andrew Tate and they idolize him, and that's scary because they have a whole future of dealing with women, and if this is what they think is good because he's showcasing I got the car, I got the girl, it's like, guys, like there's a lot more to life than getting a car and a girl and having a nice house. Like none of that makes you fulfilled.
Did you see that comment he said no woman on earth makes more money than me, and then someone was like, what about Beyonce? And he's like, no, I make more money than her. I was like,
or was it Oprah? What about Oprah?
Yeah, maybe it was Oprah. I don't know, which is hilarious.
Yeah,
because she basically owns half the world.
That you see, I think masculinity, like I think that there's like an inner strength that comes with masculinity, and like I know that when I personally see aggression in men, I don't like, you want to know that they're capable of it, like they could keep you safe if they need to, but that's not a trait that you want to see presented, because like on the day-to-day, that's kind of a red flag for like they don't have much emotional control. Like, are they just going to pop off? Right? Like if you're a woman and you're not as physically strong as them, you could feel very threatened by that as well, and not safe, by that.
Well, somebody who's violent, they're just not reasonable people, I feel.
Well, no, but like, so the guys that are like buying into this, like, I don't think that they've had great luck in love, which makes programs like this really enticing.
Are there objective numbers on how many men are buying this shit?
I'm sure we could find it, but the last I kind of checked who's buying the programs is they say that they're selling it to incels, and that's the term that they use to describe their audience, I don't know, their viewers or whatever, and that just means involuntary celibate. So it's men that want to have sex but can't. And so they're like, I'm going to teach you how to... So we're back
at the same argument. Exactly. It's like, is the ultimate goal just sex? Is it just sex?
And so like, that's really where I want to, like, that's where I think men need to hear this, but I think women need to hear it too, because a lot of women can feel like that's all men are interested in. And that's why I think...
That's huge right now. There was a period of my life where a lot of women just thought that I was a fuckboy. It's like right when the word fuckboy came out, right?
Yeah.
So... immediately when they just heard somebody else tell them, oh, Seth was with such and such, I know that girl. Like it was a hairstylist or like a eyelash lady or eyebrow lady. They had these two girls that I was dating. They both have the same eyelash lady, and the eyelash lady's like, "Oh, Seth is talking to my friend," and then she hears that, and then she's like, "I'm done with him. Like he's a fuckboy." And then I think that I don't know. That's kind of limiting for women. Just because somebody is like sexually active or somebody's dating around,
well, it's hard.
You can't be with them. Like that's kind of
the dating game is tough because again, some woman if you've slept with her, she might think that it was more serious than it was. Like
Right.
you just don't know, right? Not all women think that way, but some do feel like
there was no discussion on monogamy whatsoever.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Like it doesn't matter. Like any woman that I'll say most women that when they sleep with you, most
have
women
expectations.
Most women tend to think the relationship is more serious than perhaps the guy would view it.
Right.
Okay. That
I
doesn't
see that. I get that.
necessarily mean that they think that you're committed or in a relationship, but there's the hope or the expectation that it will turn into something if she slept with you.
Right.
And so if she finds out that you're sleeping with other people, that can be a bit of a soul crushing thing, because there's the hope or the expectation that it's something more.
Right.
You know. And so we just view it very, very differently.
And I was really interested in pursuing a relationship with this girl. I really was. And then when she found out, she pushed me away. And I thought that her immaturity about me being, like, not even sexually active. She didn't even know that I was sexually active. She just found out that I went on a date with somebody else. Mm-hmm. The fact that she was that, I guess, upset about it was kind of a... I don't know. It pushed me away too. It was a turnoff. Yeah, it was a turnoff.
I could see why, because I wouldn't recommend that anybody address it that way. Like I think if you ever have an issue, you address it and then you see how they respond, right?
She really just went dark on me.
Yeah, and she's probably doing that from her own pain, right? And she's doing this as a way to protect herself. She's probably been with a fuckboy or two before, and she's like, I'm not going down that road again. That looks like a red flag.
Right.
But it's when you see red flags, you need to be able to talk about them, communicate them, and see what the other person does back. That's what's really important about red flags, because we all have red flags. We've all been through so much life at this point that I can make anything a red flag. I can make this soda a red flag.
Yeah. And the reason why at that point I was I think it was a year ago, maybe less. I think the reason why I was keeping my options open is because I just got out of a relationship, and I wasn't looking for anything serious. So when the opportunity presented itself for me to talk to somebody else, and I didn't have a conversation of, monogamy or what my interests were.
You don't have to.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
And you're the one that told me that.
I know, I did.
You told me that. You're go fuck around, explore.
I didn't say go fuck around, Seth.
That's
Jesus
what
Christ.
I interpreted, okay?
Oh my God.
That's what I interpreted. And I did.
This is what my clients do to me all the time. They're like, you said, and I was like, I didn't say that.
I'm not. Here's the thing. This girl thought I was extremely sexually active. And I thought that was oh, really? But I'm not. But I mean, it's interesting that you think that.
Look, I told you, I was
I'm not that sexually active.
There's no, you don't owe anybody anything when you're single. She doesn't owe you anything. You
right.
don't owe her anything.
And the conversation never came up.
Fair enough. However, if something's bothering her, it's her responsibility to bring that up and address it, right?
Had she told me, I maybe would have pursued her more. I would have. But I think the fact that she ghosted me and pushing me away.
So tell me about what, because I think women need to hear this. It was the way that she responded that was a turnoff to you.
And another thing is there'd be moments we would go on a date and then she wouldn't text me for a week. And I'm I just don't think she's interested. And then she found out that I was talking to somebody else, and then she told everyone that she wasn't interested.
You know what? I had to learn this lesson the hard way too. A lot of women get bad advice. Okay,
so one of her friends are just don't text him.
Well,
make him chase you.
Yes, that's the worst advice.
Because then the guy's gonna be like, this bitch doesn't like me.
Yes, so I tell
she doesn't like me. I'm just gonna try to find somebody else. And I think that's what I did, dude. I think that's what I did.
It's so funny because I did that to Liam when we first started.
No, Jamie, it's not smart.
No, I didn't.
He must have really fucking liked you.
He had a really smart response too. He had a really smart response, and that got me looking at it differently. Actually, when we were first dating or whatever, I was like, I'm not texting him. Like, I'm not going to text this guy, And then he texted me and I was like, what took you so long to text me?
Well, that was kind of
and he was like, you didn't text me either.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I was like, but it was so simple. But I was like, I didn't.
No.
But that's when I started seeing it from a guy's perspective. It was just that one little thing right there, and I was like,
Dude,
"Oh
that
my
same
god!"
shit
I was
happened
like,
to me.
"He didn't
Same
know
shit.
that, like, because you didn't know that I
So
was
what
interested."
did you think?
Kind
It
of
was like
thing.
a tactic to get him to like you more?
No, it wasn't. I'll tell you what it was on my end. Look, women are very much told bad advice, and we are told to let a man pursue you. We're told to let a man chase you. Like, we are told that, and that is what increases your be unavailable. That increases your level of attraction. Like, this is the kind of pop psychology bullshit that's out there for women, and women fucking do it because they don't know better. Don't do that. There's a way to do it. There's a clever way to do it, but that's not the way.
Right.
Okay.
Well, she used that tactic. This girl that
it could have been that. It could have been that, and like she could have been. But women will do that to gauge guys' interest. That's the intent behind it. Is like, well, if he wants to see me, he will. So keep his energy coming to you. But that's not really how it works. It should be mutual, guys. Like, you want to have your energies coming towards each other. And that's what I advise people to do when you're dating or you're looking for love, because it needs to be reciprocal. Anytime you have a lopsided, one-sided thing going on, you're already off on the wrong foot.
Yeah. That whole thing where I didn't set the boundaries of monogamy initially because I just got out of a relationship, right? And I didn't want to rush into things because I felt it was healthy for me to be single for a while, because there was a period of time where I was just constantly in relationships. I was serial monogamous. So I was like, I'm going to stay single. And then I met a really awesome girl, and we started talking, dating. And again, I didn't set those boundaries, or I didn't give her any expectations, And then she found out from somebody else that I went on a date with another girl, someone I'm not going to bring her name up.
Oh, no, tell me.
I'll tell you after.
God damn it, Seth. You can't drop all this stuff on me.
So the girl that I actually liked, I was talking to.
I know her?
You know the other girl, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she, out of nowhere, she hit me up. She's like, I heard you're talking to someone else, and so I'm out. And I was like, okay, well... there was nothing I could have said to her to change the situation. She was done.
But how would you have liked her to respond, or what advice would you give to women?
Just ask me. Mm-hmm. Just ask me if it's serious, Yeah. And I told her from the get-go, I was like, I just got out of a relationship, and I just don't think it would be fair for me just to jump into something with you. And I was just honest. I was just honest with her, and we hooked up a lot. We hung out a lot, and everything was great. We went to like stand-up show. Like I think we went to Tom Segura. We saw Tom Segura. He's one of my favorite comedian, and we did a lot of stuff together. It was awesome. Everything was moving well, but still, I was like, I still want to take this slow. And she wanted monogamy like then. I think after 3 months, she's like, or 2 or 3 months, she's like, I want it now. And then when she found out that, that I went on a date with somebody else, she's like, I'm out. Mm-hmm. So maybe she just wasn't interested in me enough.
No, I don't think that's what it is. I think look, you said, here's what I think happened. Okay. You set the standards and the boundaries right away. Women hear that and they're like, I can change them. That's what women will do. Not all women, but a lot of women do. They'll hear that, and if they really like a guy, they'll be like, okay, I hear that he doesn't want monogamy, but I'm different. I'm special. I'm the thing that's going to make that shift, okay? Right. And so she meets all your needs. She's your best partner. She sleeps with you. She does all these things, right? But after a period, there's a time limit on that, okay? Right. And after that time limit is reached, there's an expectation that you will shift, that you will see how these beautiful qualities, and I'm not saying that they're not beautiful qualities, but that you will recognize, honor, and respect those beautiful qualities, and it will be enough to change. And that's how a lot of women view or perceive it when a guy sets his boundaries. And I tell women all the time, I said, oh, just believe him. Don't date the potential, date what is. Date exactly how they're showing up right now.
I think showing up, that's really important. What you said, that's super important.
Because a lot of women, they'll idealize, romanticize, and see how great something could be, or see the potential, right? Like right now, you're saying that you're not ready for like a serious relationship or whatever, like after having just gotten out of something, right? Women need to hear that and believe that. Now, if that changes, you can communicate that, but most women will just kind of make up a story and say, well, I think when he meets me or when he spends enough time with me, it'll shift. And it's very, very, that can happen, but it's far and few in between. That wouldn't be the norm.
I think that the lack of communication really kind of fucked us.
Yeah.
You know, had she just been like, hey, I really want to be with you, and I don't like that you're talking to somebody else. And maybe at that point, I'd have been like, all right, you know what? Let's fucking do this. Like, I'll take a chance with you. But the fact that she, just like the other girl, just immediately, just like, he's a fuckboy, I'm fucking done with this guy. And I think that's a problem with women right now. Mm-hmm. I really do. And I'm not saying that women should just start fucking fuckboys. I'm saying that there's a possibility that you could be pushing away a guy that's actually good for you.
So
like,
here's
who adds value to your life. You know?
I agree. Like, moral of the story is this, ladies. Like, if you ever have an issue in a relationship, dating or not, like, address it first. Like, have a conversation, but you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like, a lot of people, we're just trying to protect our heart. We're not we're not being open with each other about what we really want. And like, if you really like somebody, you know, these kinds of things, you have to put it on the table. And like, in doing that, yes, you will lose people, but you're not going to lose the person that's for you. That kind of stuff doesn't scare away the right person.
Yeah. I think I would have responded the way they would have wanted me to respond had they brought it up in conversation.
Wow, they're gonna hear this and be like, "Fuck."
I don't know. I don't think I'm that much of a catch.
Is there still a chance if somebody
know.
slides into your DMs?
I don't know. You know, Jamie, I'm so fucking busy right now.
I know you are.
And then this last season I had for rugby was one of the best I ever had, and the things I did leading up to that season, I'm doing for this season, and I just think I'm like hyper focused for the next season. And there's just like stuff I want to accomplish in that sphere. Even at an amateur level, I love the game so much. I feel like my whole life is kind of dedicated to that game. And I feel like women take a backseat to my rugby career, my amateur rugby career.
Do you think that, like, if you met the right woman, that would shift your perspective?
Of course. But the right woman, for me, is probably going to be, I don't know, who they're going to reward me playing rugby. You know?
Well, yeah, that's going to be part of your alignment. That's what I mean. It's not going to be, like, it'll be
they're
compatible.
They're going to encourage me.
It'll add value, right?
To like pursue the things that I love.
But like when you meet, like, this is another thing I think the red pillars kind of miss is they don't talk about love. When you actually
I want to talk to you about this because that's super important, man.
So they're just talking about transactions.
Do they even think love exists?
I don't know. I have no idea. It doesn't sound.
It sounds like they think that they can buy love.
I don't think they're interested in love. And if they are, they certainly don't really talk about it. But
has Andrew Tate said anything about love?
In what's in what way?
What does he think it is? Like,
I don't think he even know what, not to say like he doesn't know what love is. I have to say like he thinks that,
it's like a weakness.
Yeah, it's like some form of like you can't have what most people have type of ordeal.
I think the thing that I want to highlight with the love thing is that the red pill really leaves that out, and it's not something that they really consider. When you if these guys met they say like, well, here's how love changes things, okay? Let's say you don't want to date a woman with kids. Let's say that's something that you don't want to do, okay? But let's say you meet this woman that ticks all the boxes and she has a child and you love her. You fall in love with her. You don't give a fuck that she's got a kid, okay? But the red pill will be like, they would tell you to disqualify her. Yes, they would. They would say that's not, you can have all these young hot bitches over here. You don't want a mom. She's a burden. Like, that's how they view it, and like she's been ran through, and they'll say things like that.
That's so bad.
Normally it's like the younger the better for them.
The younger the better. They have this whole scale.
Well, listen to how men or women as transactions, like you said, like a possession.
Listen to this. This is so creepy. They have this like sexual marketplace value like graph or something like that. And the age starts at 15. And I was like, ew, that's
What?
so
Damn.
creepy.
Like what?
Yeah, like that's when a woman starts coming into her own and she's like on the sexual marketplace value and she's 15. And I was like,
Holy
can't you
shit.
get arrested for that?
Honestly, I didn't even know what to do with myself at the age of 15.
No,
Let
I
alone
was-
like think about anyone in my personal bubble.
Yeah.
I lost my virginity when I was 14.
Oh my God, are you serious? Jesus Christ.
Okay, and it was horrific. It was bad. It was at my friend
Was it voluntary?
Galen's house. It was Galen's. He doesn't care if I say this. His family went out of town and he was left the house alone. And I drank like 2 Budweisers and I was drunk. And I
You little 14-year-old.
I met this girl who went to a different high school. I was 14 because I was a freshman. And it was a horrifying experience. I popped her cherry. There was blood everywhere.
Oh, God.
She started to cry. And then fast forward 8 years later, she became a lesbian. So, like,
Do you think that experience had anything to do with it?
I wish it had never fucking happened. But that was the first time I had sex. And
I feel like a
I
lot of
kinda
people's
like-
first time is not good.
it just kind of
It's like breaking the hymen is like the scariest thing for a young person getting into sex.
yeah, it was terrifying. It wasn't
Yeah,
great.
that doesn't sound very positive. I feel like a lot of people's first times though is not the best.
I was such a stupid kid. I was like talking to this other girl at the time, and I was like, I have to tell her. I was like 14. I was like, I have to tell her, and I told her, and I just remember like sitting outside and next to my pool, and it's summer, and I was telling this girl, her name's Sarah. I was like, I had sex with a girl last night, and she's like, why? I was like, I don't know, but I like you. I was crying.
Oh,
That was my
gosh.
first like experience with sex, and like I guess disappointing a girl and like just feeling like shit. I was
Yeah.
and I was 14. I was 14.
Yeah, that's such a tough thing to navigate because you have.
I mean, I
all
don't
the-
think about it now, but now when I look back on it, I'm like, damn, that was depressing. It was kind of funny, but also kind of depressing.
Let's see. I'm trying to how.
Yeah,
let's-
what kind of questions do you have? I want to go into
I
some of the
have-
stuff that he said. It's
Yeah. What
pretty
do you want to?
insane.
What do you want to like? His like comments or whatever.
They're so absurd. I know. Look, and this is
Did
the
you
thing.
like Google up some of the random stuff that he says? Okay.
Look, and I get he says some shit that makes sense, like his views on religion, his views on, politics. A lot of it makes sense. And I have a friend, his name's Sammy, and he agrees with a lot of stuff Andrew Tate says. And I'm not. Look, I'll play devil's advocate here. Some of the stuff he says makes sense, but if you are someone that is constantly fucking listening to yourself talk, you might say something poignant once in a while. And if you are well spoken, you're gonna attract somebody, and they're gonna really invest their time into you. But do the things you say, are they justified if some of the things you say are fucking also absurd? Like, the first one is he thinks that all women belong to men, belong as any possession. Mm-hmm. Now, if I said that, if I asked Sammy, say that to your wife, what the fuck do you think your wife's gonna say? That you belong, like she belongs to you, like she's a mail order bride. Does that make sense?
Look,
Despite his views on like, should there be a 2-party system in America? Like, obviously those things are fucking, they make sense. I get that. But can you not discredit the man for like what if he said that the Holocaust never happened, but he's also like Republicans are way too conservative? Like, does it not? It's fucking obvious. It's fucking obvious, dude. Like, you're just following the wrong shit for the wrong reasons.
It's scary, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and then he's got all these guys who like blindly follow him because he might say some poignant shit sometimes.
Yeah.
But he's also saying that women deserve to be raped. Like,
Oh my God.
can you not sort through the shit, guys? Can you not sort through the shit? And a lot of the stuff they get a boner for like the politics. And look, I don't want to go over politics too much. Like, there was a moment in my life where I was like super progressive and liberal, and then I started a company and I became more conservative, so I understand both sides. But I think they get like a boner for Andrew Tate's like politics, and then he'll say something outlandish about women, and they don't care. They just let it slide. They neglect the poor things that he says, and they accept the things that align with their
I agree.
politics.
Yeah.
And so that's all they focus on.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shame because, like, dude, you're giving this guy a voice.
What
And little
advice-
kids are listening to him and they're seeing you like fucking pander to him and they're like, oh, he's saying the right shit. And then they grow up to be fucking assholes, dude.
So Seth, like, what advice would you give? Okay, like, what advice would you give to these guys, okay, that are struggling in relationships, that let's say that they're not able to attract a partner? Like, what is important for them to focus on? Like, what do they need to do so that they can be successful at relationships?
Figure out who they are first.
Okay.
That's super important. There was no way when I was 25, 26, 27, 29, 30, 31, 32, up until maybe 33, I was going to find a good relationship. There's just no fucking way.
Why?
Because I just wasn't successful enough to myself. Like I didn't think I was doing well enough. I didn't think I had figured it out. I didn't find my passion for life. I didn't find my career. I thought I did, but I really didn't. I was miserable. There's no way in hell I would have been able to find the true love of my life. There's just no way. I think even now I have all those things that I just mentioned, right? I have a career. I'm more confident. I'm very excited about where I am right now, and I still don't think I can find true love because I just don't have the time. I really need to be able to invest into somebody, and I don't know. I'm trying. There's someone I'm talking to, and like I'm really gonna try. I really am, but I'm not getting my hopes up because I don't want to let her down, you know? Like if I'm so preoccupied, especially when the rugby season starts, like I really don't want to let her down, you know? I like her. I like her a lot. She's amazing. She has a kid, you know? And it doesn't bother me at all. Her kid's fucking adorable. It doesn't bother me at all.
I think that openness is so important, like as you're going, and then that's where people can kind of say, yeah, that's for me, or yeah, that's not, right? Then they can actually make a decision about what's best for them. But a lot of us don't communicate like openly like that. We just kind of keep it in.
And I know she's going to hear this, and I hope I don't get in trouble for it, but I value her a lot. I really do. And I really am going to give it, you know, I'm going to try. I don't want to say the college try.
Connection
I don't want to say college try because I feels like it's really like I make it seem trivial.
I'm going to have you guys both back on here. We're going to talk about your love story.
She's great. She's super sweet, man. Like, she's so nice, and it kind of blew me away at how.
What kind of set her apart from maybe some other women that you've dated? You told me one thing, I remember.
I mean, the passion and stuff is all there. I don't think me finding passion has ever been an issue. I think me finding
that wasn't what you told me.
Oh, the kiss.
No.
Did I say that? Our kiss is really compatible, which is weird. Like, it's extremely compatible. Like, I'm not kidding. It's like. It's extremely compatible, which is interesting. Like, you ever been on a date with somebody and it's like, what the fuck kiss was that? Like, they like lick your eyebrow and shit. It's like, and like in my 30s, I dated these girls who were in their 30s that do not know how to kiss. Like, they just don't fucking know how to do it. Like, they're choking you. Like,
I don't know. I can't.
So I had these moments, and so then when I found somebody like the girl I'm talking to now, that where like it's just the kind of kiss that I guess I like, or maybe it's like that was the first thing initially.
I remember you told me that you liked the way that she responded to a certain situation.
Yes.
And that I thought was really interesting.
Yes, you're right. You're right. She gave me space, and she was very understanding, and she. Unlike the other girls recently who were kind of pressuring me into getting into a monogamous relationship, she was very patient, you know, and she listened to me, and there'd be like moments where I'd be so fucking busy.
Well, how long has it been since you guys have been dating?
I'd say like 3 months.
Okay, same amount of time the other girl gave you. So what's the difference?
Which girl?
So the one that was like, you hit the 3-month mark with her, and she was like, I want a relationship, and you're like.
She was pressuring me.
Okay, so it
and
wasn't
she was
the
getting
time.
upset
But this
with
is the
me.
kind of shit that I'm talking about, and this is good.
Reinforcing it because you're trying to help women out here, right?
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying to help both.
Yeah.
But
I think
yes.
this is good advice for women.
Yeah. So like, look, it wasn't like, because what you said wasn't actually like how it played out, but that's how you're categorizing it in your mind. You said it was, she was patient with me. She gave me time. She gave you the same amount of time the other girl was, but what stuck out to you was her response.
Exactly.
That's the key, ladies. Like,
dude,
it's how she responded to him.
Exactly.
It's the emotional control she had. She wasn't reactive with you. She was loving and understanding. Like those were actually the things that when you were telling me that when we were training the other day, I was like, that's the value that he was finding in it.
Oh, that's super important.
But you saw time, but it wasn't actually time. It was these other things. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I did say that. You're right. I forgot about that. Honestly, that's what drew me to her. It's like she was extremely patient with me. Like extremely.
What do you think is a high value woman?
I think a high value woman makes you introspective and makes you really rethink what your own values are and makes you rethink what is valuable in general. I think that's a high valuable woman. Like what you're willing to sacrifice, what they add to you. I think there's a lot of variables for value. I think love comes after all that stuff, right? Like you just don't fall in love with somebody. Love is the reason why you stay with somebody, right?
I think.
But what permeates the love?
I think love is
value.
I think
is understanding value.
I love that.
Value comes before love, and once you find the value of somebody, and over time you begin to love them because you not. Would you say is it possible just to fall in love with someone right away?
I think I don't know about
without knowing them.
Yeah, I don't know. I think love's deeper than that, right?
You watched that TV show where
Love at First Sight.
Love at First Sight.
We got asked to be on that show, or wait, no, it was Love Island.
Love Island.
Yeah, I was like, fuck that, no way.
There's a lot of love shows. Love sells. It does.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so do you think it's possible for someone to truly fall in love with somebody without even knowing him? Because I think it requires understanding the value of them.
Well, I think you can actually fall in love quite quickly, but it depends what you do with the time. Okay, like I think you can know. So, like I've seen couples that have been together for years and they don't have a connection. They don't really know each other. They've lived separate lives. They don't really spend. They live. I literally had a lady like she lives this life. He lives this life. She literally raised the kids on her own, but they live in the same house. But they don't really know each other, right? But then I can have this other couple that, let's say they spent a week in Costa Rica together and they spent all this time together and they asked the tough questions. Well, they might know each other better than the couple that's been married for 10 years and they might fall in love more than they did, you know? Right. So it's how you're investing in the relationship and what you're actually communicating. Like love requires vulnerability. Love requires a certain level of like self-healing because if you don't do that, love can land in your lap and you won't recognize it.
Right. So I guess to field your question about value, I think value forces some sort of action, right? If you find somebody that's valuable and you see that, you're not going to be the type of person that doesn't respond back to a text, or you're not going to be the type of person that won't go out of their way, move things around in their schedule, and make time for a person, right? It's a verb. It requires action. Love is a verb, right?
I love that.
So I think once you find value in somebody, it really, at that point, you change your life, right? You do things you didn't do before to be with that person. Yeah. And that's part of finding value, I guess, in some way.
I love that answer, and like that totally it's we're saying the same thing.
Especially
absolutely.
Nowadays, like everyone's so busy, especially our age. Everyone's fucking so busy. So if I'm going out of my way and I'm like going home early and like scheduling time with this person, because at this point in my life I literally have to schedule time to be with somebody.
Yeah.
And then just like neglecting my dog.
I know. I was just gonna say, oh my God, your little dog.
I love my dog. So if I'm neglecting my dog and I'm leaving it at home to go and hang out with you, fuck, I definitely find value in you. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I don't want to leave him alone. Like I fucking hate it.
I think it's so important because to have these kinds of conversations, because men do value more than physical appearance. And I think it is important for women to develop your sense of self outside of just what you look like. And most women do, but we can get a little lost in that, especially in Vegas where it's so praised and promoted and whatever. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good and like how you look and dress how you want, like whatever. But that can't be all you have to offer.
You know what's crazy? I've been all over the spectrum when it comes to like looks. Like I've been with like fucking supermodel looking girls, and I've been with a girl that was, and when I was in college, I dated a girl who's actually a really famous writer, and I don't want to say her name, but she is a distinguished tenure professor, has multiple publications. She's the most intelligent person I've ever met in my life. She was absolutely amazing. And I was just too young. I was just too fucking young. And if I didn't, if I maybe I met her at a different time, because I also think love is all about timing. That's super important, because you got to be prepared for love too,
Yeah.
So maybe if I'd have met her at a different time in my life, it would have worked out. But she was so fucking smart and so like.
So that's like an attractive quality for you.
Oh God, yeah, that was the other side of the spectrum. I mean, she was pretty, but she wasn't like, like a supermodel, and she didn't even care about being a supermodel. She cared about writing. She cared about, increasing her intellect and her knowledge and trying to hone in on her craft of writing, and like that was sexy as fuck. Like, and she wrote the coolest shit. I remember she had some amazing short stories. We were in a workshop together. I don't know if you know this. I got a degree in writing from UNR, so I was in a lot of workshops.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't know that.
That's how I met her, and we hit it off really well. She was the most beautiful girl in our workshop, which it's not saying much. The most writers aren't the most attractive people, but she was actually really pretty, and we hit it off, and it was just the wrong time of my life. If it would have been maybe 5 or 6 years later, I don't know. I could have ended differently or started differently, But so I dated all sorts of people, like in other sides of the spectrum. And at this point in my life, it's like, doesn't matter. They can all fail. Like no matter how pretty she is, or like what part of the spectrum that you find sexy about her, like it can fail everywhere. It really find the right person. Like you said this one thing the other day, like checking all the boxes, It's kind of tough when all the boxes as you get older kind of change, just a little bit. I feel like my boxes have changed since I was in college.
I think as you grow and as you develop, it might be, your preferences might change,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's kind of why you have to go through a period of personal development before you can really kind of figure out what's for you, right?
Yeah, personal development, smart. I think that's one thing we can take away from this conversation today is that I like that, what you said, finding the alignment. Is there a word for that? I feel like you know all these fucking...
like psychological term?
Yeah,
I don't know.
term.
I just say alignment.
It makes sense. It does.
Oh, probably congruent. That would be more of like a psychological term, but
So, but I think that men, if we can, let's go over the stuff that you want to talk about, because there were some things that you had questions about, and I kind of there's things that I wanted to tell you, but I fucking forgot them.
Well, how are we doing on time, Amber? Because usually we have about like an hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dude, we're in an hour and 22 minutes.
This happened with Megan's podcast. Dude.
Yeah,
I didn't realize
we could just go on and on.
2 hours went by, and I didn't even fucking realize it.
Well, look, I think we can let's end with one question, and then we'll because we'll kind of have to wrap up. But I'd love to have you back.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'm still so sore from training.
Really?
Like, I am. Like,
we should get Megan in here and Jamie.
I would love. Oh, that would be great.
Dude,
all
that would
of
be an
us.
awesome conversation.
Yeah, that would be.
Okay,
we can all talk about how you beat us up all day.
That's what I want to talk about too.
Okay.
Do you think most men would be intimidated to date Jamie and Megan?
Your average men? Yeah, I do.
I do too.
Yeah.
And this is only because
I'm just saying what the
what's
norm
happened
is.
with Megan's relationships in the past.
And look, guys are gonna hear that and I'm like, I'm not intimidated, but I think most, like, there's definitely like tons of compatible partners for both of them. They're high value women. They really are. Okay.
For sure.
But high value women are going to be more selective.
Yeah.
Okay. And same with high value men. The thing is that like most men might not have.
It's like that guy that dated my friend. He's kind of insecure about his, being impotent.
There are some men that might
he'll push him away.
They
won't even try.
There are some men that might be threatened by their success.
Yeah.
They might be threatened by other, like their beauty even. Maybe they don't want to date a woman that draws that much attention, right? So most not all men, because there's always exceptions to the rule, but I can see why in the dating game it would be difficult, and why men maybe that are single and dating and that have had failed relationships would find them maybe harder to approach, because because a lot of guys too might look at them and think that they've got all the options in the world, and they've got all these dicks in their DMs and all this stuff, right? And they might not understand like really what that experience is on their end as well, you know?
I think when I was younger, I would have been way intimidated to talk to Megan or Jamie, you know? But as I've gotten older, I feel like those are the type of women that I'm looking for, you know?
Yeah, I think as you become, you know, like men that have, most men have not reached a certain level of self-esteem or like emotional security. And that's why they resort to things like power and control, because it creates a sense of safety.
Make it, you know, come back full circle, buying the fucking program.
Yeah, or they'll lead with money or like whatever. Like,
or
I'm
make
not
sex
good enough,
the
but
primary focus.
yeah, I'm not good enough, but I've got this car and I can take you to dinner. Like, you know, and they'll lead with that because it's like they're not good enough. So they have to peacock, right? To be like, let me attract you this way.
Someone that you know, I'm not going to.
I swear to God, if you do that shit to me again, Seth.
So she went on a date with a guy and everybody set them up, right?
Okay.
So it was a setup, and all of their friends were like, you guys will be great together. He's extremely successful and you're successful and he checks all the boxes. Mm-hmm. And then they go to dinner and she sits down and talk to him, and the guy's fucking super effeminate. Like very, very effeminate. And it's just like, it startles her.
Yeah.
She's like, what the fuck? Like, this guy has like a Ferrari. I don't know if this is true, but he has like a supercar and he's like super successfll, and like on paper, like it makes sense. It makes sense.
It's so funny.
And then she sits down and talks to him, and it's like that Seinfeld episode where Seinfeld dates the girl with the big hands. Like, she's perfect, but she's got the big hands. It's kind of like the situation with Meg. She's like, everything was like aligned. And then he's like, you know, I like soda.
I'll have to save this for like another show, but like the way a lot of women will also make a mistake because they measure themselves by, well, I'm educated, I have money, I've got this, and this, and they describe that as attractive qualities for a man. That is not what most men find attractive. Most men don't care how much money you make. They don't really care where you went to school at. They care about these other traits, which I'll save for another day. But
right.
So I think we can kind of miss the mark on those things too, where women can lead with more masculine energy. And if you lead with more masculine energy, your match is a more effeminate male.
Okay, so how do you want to close this out?
Well, do you have a question, or should I end with end with a question? What should we do?
When are you and Liam going to get married? Oh, because I want to go to that fucking wedding.
I'm trying to get married in Italy.
I'll break my sobriety for that one.
I know.
Because Jamie and I have had some crazy nights together.
Hey, save that for another day.
So I'll definitely break my sobriety for your guys' wedding for fucking sure.
Yeah, no,
that'd be fun.
Yeah,
and all the Thunder Boys there. Oh my
God, it's gonna be crazy.
Dude,
should we have them like
so
dance?
much fun?
Yeah, no, it's definitely like yeah, I talked about it a lot. So
good.
We'll see.
I'm all fucking for it, dude.
Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, would you ever propose? And I was like, fuck no. Are you kidding me? No. Oh my goodness.
He'll do it. I think he'll do it.
The thing is that I think what's so cool is that I think for me, there's so much safety that I have that, look, I've been married. So my focus, like a lot of women are like married next step.
This is that trial and error shit.
For me, I'm like, I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Like that's not super important to me.
You're not afraid to fail either.
I'm not.
No.
Look, like I'm not, but I know how temporary relationships can be as well. And and I will tell you this, like
sure.
I am so solid and have such a sense of security within myself that I don't focus on that. I really don't. I'm like, I feel really good about what I have, very blessed, and I'm very grateful. But if it all left tomorrow, I'd still be okay.
Yeah,
and I don't know if a lot of other people could say that.
Yeah. I think the problem with people when they first get married too, it's like, I have to make this work. I have to make this work. I got kids with them. I have to make it work. It's like, no, you don't have to do that.
And I feel like for women, it's like the ultimate sense of security. It's like the ultimate status. Like, I've been chosen. He picked me. There's my value. And I don't look at it that way. I'm like, I'm in a very happy relationship. I'm in a healthy relationship. I feel good. Like, if we go to that next step, like, that's going to be even better. But it's not my focus. My focus isn't marriage. My focus is love.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And on that note.
Oh, that's a good note. That's cute. That's cute. Dude, my butthole is sweating so
oh my
much
God.
right now.
So we had to, so Seth, Seth was,
I just
teaching a
came
class.
from a True Fusion class, and it's like the class was super hot. So I ran over, I worked 15 hours.
He
and then
trained
came
me earlier today.
straight
too.
in. Remember I told you about like compromising your time
Yeah.
for somebody? Well,
Yeah,
I did it
thanks.
for you. I did it for you.
My arms are sore.
Slayer's at home just like, what the fuck is this guy,
I know.
dude?
Well, Seth, I want to thank you so much for coming on here. Like, I really
This
like.
is fun. Let's do it again. And I
would
can
love
probably
to.
get Megan and Jamie to come. Why didn't Albert come on? What did he say? What was his excuse?
I think he couldn't find a sitter. He's a liar. I'm just kidding.
Oh, he's got a lot of kids, dude.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love Albert. No,
I love
I think
Albert,
I
too.
think he said he couldn't find a sitter.
I think it would be interesting to get his point of view too, because he's so successful.
I do too. I talked to him a little bit about it on the phone and gave him kind of like
And
a little.
Lauren, his girlfriend, is extremely successful too, and I think that he probably finds that like really sexy.
I agree.
She's a powerful woman, and she's got her shit together, and I think that's a big reason why he's with her. You know, so he would be a great guy to ask about this.
I know. Well,
Because what happens when you really meet a fucking real alpha? Like Albert's a real alpha. Like,
Yeah.
and he does really well, and I think it'd be interesting to see his point of view. Like, I'm a fake alpha compared to Albert. Like,
No, you're not.
He's
Seth. Like,
he's the
and I
alpha.
don't even like using the term.
I don't
alpha.
either, but you see what
I
I'm
will
saying.
I will say this: you're a very respectable man. You've always just been you've been very loving, protective, and kind over all of the people that I've seen you interact with, and you've been that way through and through. Like, consistency, right? You're that way on, and you're that way off. And I will tell you that is a real picture of what masculinity is. You make the women around you feel safe. You treat them with love, kindness, and respect. And you don't have a problem getting girls either. So it's just kind of like these things, guys, they will work for you. But I want to thank you again for coming on.
Anytime. Let's do it again.
Yes, and
That'd be
if you guys wanna train with Seth, he's at Almaza Fitness. I've trained with him for 2 years now. He's completely changed my body. And he's just one of my really good friends. So thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you
All
for
right,
having me.
guys. Thank you for popping the pink pill.
Thanks, Amber.
Bye.